dare you bring this here? Get out of my office immediately!
The moment my mother's heart stopped beating, I never imagined my life would spiral into a nightmare. And then, in the middle of my grief, my stepmother walked in demanding everything that was supposed to be mine. My mother's $530,000 inheritance. Every cent. And that's when I realized nothing would ever be the same again. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share the story with someone who loves suspenseful dramas. And tell me, where are you watching from in the comments below? I want to know you're part of the world while we uncover the shocking choices ahead. The funeral hall smelled faintly of lilies and polished wood, a quiet chaos of whispered condolences and muted sobs. I clutched my mother's favorite scarf, the one she always wore on rainy days, now cold and lifeless in my hands. My heart felt hollow, a pit that refused to close no matter how deep I inhaled. Then I saw her, Vivian, my stepmother. She moved with calculated elegance, a black veil framing her sharp eyes. I froze. Everyone else seemed caught between grief and polite acknowledgement, but her eyes, they weren't sad. They were calculating, cold, measuring. As the priest spoke about legacy, love, and memories, I felt a chill crawl up my spine. My mother's friends murmured comforting words. But Vivian, she was already planning her next move. She didn't wait for the eulogies to end. After the service, in the quiet of the parlor, she approached me. Her voice was sweet, practiced, but every word sliced through me. "Lila, darling, about your mother's estate," she said, tilting her head, her smile carefully measured. "I think it's only fair I take control. After all, I've been managing the family's finances for years. The $530,000, it belongs with me now." I blinked. The room felt suddenly colder. My chest tightened. I wanted to speak, to scream, but my voice refused to obey. My mother had worked her whole life to secure that money for me, not for her. My hands shook. I could feel the anger bubbling, but beneath it was a raw, gut-wrenching sorrow. Betrayal had a face now, and I was staring at it directly. Vivian leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I've already spoken to the lawyer. It'll be simple. You won't even need to fight it." Simple. She made it sound so casual, as if destroying the last connection I had to my mother was just another task on her checklist. And that's when the moral storm hit me. What should I do? Fight back now, in the middle of everyone's grief? Let her take what was meant for me and swallow the pain? Or trust that my mother's lawyer might have a plan I didn't yet understand? I wanted to run. Run away from the accusations, from the betrayal, from the hollow ache in my chest. But the words were already spoken, and the choice was no longer mine to ignore. The room blurred as tears pricked my eyes. People whispered, condolences tangled with gossip. But all I could hear was the voice in my head asking, what would you do if the person closest to you betrayed you at the worst possible moment? CTA. Before we continue, I need you to pause for a second. If this happened to you, what would you do? Would you confront her, or wait for a plan to unfold? Comment below, I'll read them all. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe, like, and share so you don't miss the shocking choices that come next. The next day, the lawyer called. Mr. Caldwell's voice was calm, but there was a weight behind it, a hidden urgency. "Lila, your mother anticipated everything. You need to come to my office. I have instructions she left for you. But be careful. Not everyone can be trusted." Trust. The word felt fragile in my mouth, heavy with uncertainty. I didn't know if I should be afraid of Vivian, the lawyer, or even myself. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same. As I closed the door behind me, the air seemed thicker, the silence louder. The choice I had to make wasn't just about money. It was about family, loyalty, and survival. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the next decision would change everything. I thought my nightmare couldn't get worse until I walked into my mother's lawyer's office and discovered that everything I believed about my inheritance was a lie. What I learned next would change everything and force me to make a choice that could destroy my family forever. The office smelled faintly of polished wood and old leather. Mr. Caldwell's presence was calm, almost soothing, but the weight in his eyes told me he carried more than just paperwork. "Lila," he said, gesturing for me to sit, "your mother planned everything with precision. She knew Vivian would try to take the inheritance. She left instructions, but you must understand, following them won't be easy." I gripped the edge of the chair. My chest felt tight, my mind racing. "What do you mean? What kind of instructions?" He reached into a locked drawer and pulled out a small, unmarked envelope. "Inside this envelope is everything your mother wanted you to know. But you must be careful, not everyone is trustworthy. Some family members might be more involved than you realize." The words hit me like a punch. Not just my stepmother, but someone else? The thought twisted my stomach. Could someone close to me really be working against me? I opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were letters, bank statements, and a coded note from my mother. The message was clear. Vivian is not entitled to the $530,000. But to claim it safely, you must follow these steps and watch who you trust. I felt a spark of hope, a glimmer that maybe justice could be mine. But then fear crept in. Every glance I'd shared with family now felt loaded with suspicion. Could I trust my father? My older cousin, who always smiled so warmly. The lawyer's warning echoed in my mind. Not everyone is trustworthy. Then came the first test. Caldwell handed me a small key. "This opens a safe deposit box at the bank. Your mother put something important inside. It's part of her plan. But I warn you, getting to it won't be easy. Someone will try to stop you." My pulse quickened. The thought of Vivian intercepting me made my hands sweat. And yet, the idea that my mother had outsmarted her stepmother gave me strength. But what if she fights back? I asked, my voice shaking. "She will," Caldwell said flatly. "And she might try to use the law, or lies, or even manipulate your emotions. You need to be prepared. The choice is yours. Confront her directly, follow my instructions quietly, or risk everything by waiting too long." The moral weight of the moment pressed down on me. My mother had left me a path, but it wasn't simple. Every step came with risk. Every decision could destroy what little family I had left, or worse, put me in danger. I left the office with the envelope clutched tightly. My mind raced with scenarios. If I confronted Vivian now, she might retaliate with lawyers, threats, or worse. If I followed the plan cautiously, I risked losing time, allowing her to sabotage me. Even on the drive home, the tension refused to release its grip. Every glance in the rearview mirror, every honk of a car horn, felt like a warning. Someone was watching, I was sure of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the envelope on my nightstand, imagining the choices I had to make. Should I trust the lawyer? Should I act against Vivian immediately? Or should I investigate quietly first, uncovering her schemes before striking? And then it hit me. My mother had trusted me with not just her fortune, but the truth about my family. That truth was like a blade, cutting through the veil of comfort I had once known. CTA, here's where you come in. If you were in Lila's shoes, would you trust the lawyer's secret plan or confront Vivian head-on? Comment below with your choice. I want to see what you would do. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you're hooked on this suspenseful journey. Tomorrow I would have to make the first move. But which path would I take, and what dangers awaited me along the way? One wrong step, one misjudged choice, and everything could crumble. I thought I could trust my own family. I was wrong. Every step I took to secure what was rightfully mine brought me closer to a truth I never expected, and closer to the person who might destroy everything. What would you do if your own blood turned against you? The days after receiving my mother's instructions were a storm of confusion and paranoia. Every phone call, every knock at the door, made my stomach twist. I knew Vivian was watching, waiting, planning her next move. And I wasn't sure who else I could trust. Mr. Caldwell had given me a roadmap, letters, bank statements, and the key to the safe deposit box. But following it meant stepping into unknown territory. If I moved too fast, I risked Vivian's wrath. If I moved too slow, she could claim the inheritance first. I decided to start quietly. First, I gathered all my mother's financial documents, tracing every account and transaction. The deeper I dug, the more I realized how clever my mother had been. Every loophole Vivian could exploit had been anticipated, every step countered with contingency plans. My mother had known betrayal was possible, maybe even inevitable. Then came the confrontation. I had invited Vivian over under the guise of reconciliation, hoping to gauge her intentions. The moment she stepped inside, her eyes glimmered with a mix of curiosity and arrogance. She didn't hide her smirk. "So, Lila," she said, her tones silky yet dangerous. "Are you ready to hand over what's rightfully mine? Or will you keep playing games like your mother always did?" My blood boiled. I clenched my fists, holding onto the calm voice I forced myself to use. "I'm not giving you anything, Vivian. And I suggest you leave before I take legal action." Her smirk widened. "Oh, sweetie, don't make me laugh. You're alone in this. Everyone else will side with me. You have nothing, not even your mother's protection anymore." The words stung, but I remembered Caldwell's warning. Not everyone can be trusted. I needed proof, not just confrontation. I couldn't let my emotions control my actions. That night, I sneaked into the bank with the key, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every creak of the floor sounded like a warning. I opened the safe deposit box slowly. Inside, there were documents that could ruin Vivian, legal clauses, letters detailing hidden instructions, and a sealed envelope addressed specifically to me. My mother had thought of everything, but just as I touched the envelope, I heard a soft click. My heart froze. Someone else was here. Vivian. She had followed me. "I knew you'd try something," she whispered from the shadows, her eyes gleaming. "You think you're clever, Lila. But clever doesn't win in my world." Panic surged. Every instinct screamed to flee, but I couldn't leave the envelope. It was the key to justice, to my mother's legacy. Vivian stepped closer. "Give it to me. Now." This was the moment. Do I fight her? Hand it over to survive the confrontation? Or risk everything by standing my ground? I thought I had uncovered everything my mother had hidden, but nothing prepared me for the truth that would shatter my world. What I discovered about my own family left me speechless and terrified. The room was thick with tension. Vivian's eyes glimmered with malice as she blocked the doorway to the safe deposit box. My hands trembled, clutching the sealed envelope. Every instinct screamed danger. Every shadow seemed to stretch closer. "Hand it over, Lila," she hissed, stepping forward. "Your mother's fortune, your inheritance, it's mine, and you won't stop me." I swallowed hard. My mother's letters had warned me, but nothing could prepare me for the raw intensity in Vivian's gaze. I realized she didn't just want the money. She wanted to control the entire family, to assert dominance over every piece of what my mother had built. "You won't get it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know what she intended, and I won't let you manipulate it." Vivian laughed coldly, her voice echoing against the polished walls. "Manipulate? Sweetheart, you don't even know the half of it. Your family already knows who's on whose side." The words hit me like a punch. Could my own family really betray me? My father? My cousins? Every face I trusted suddenly felt like a mask hiding intentions I couldn't see. Before I could react, my phone buzzed. A text from Mr. Caldwell. "Lila, open the envelope. You'll understand. Trust your instincts, but beware who's watching." Heart pounding, I tore open the envelope. Inside were documents revealing not only my mother's plan to protect the inheritance, but also shocking confessions. Evidence that Vivian had secretly conspired with someone close to me, my own older cousin, Mark, to claim the money. My stomach churned. Mark? My cousin? The one who smiled and hugged me every holiday? The one I had always thought of as family? Vivian's smug grin widened as she sensed the shift in me. "Surprised, Lila? It's amazing how loyalty changes when money is involved. You'll learn soon enough that you're utterly alone." I couldn't breathe. Every memory of family gatherings, every laugh, every handshake, now felt like a lie. Betrayal was a word too small for what I felt. But I remembered my mother's words. Not everyone can be trusted, but always follow the truth. I realized I held the ultimate leverage. The evidence in my hands could bring Vivian down, expose Mark, and protect what was rightfully mine. I had a choice: confront Vivian now and risk a violent escalation, or use the law, evidence, and careful planning to secure justice. "You won't get away with this," I said finally, my voice calm but firm. "I have everything you've tried to hide. And when the authorities see it, you and Mark will pay for what you did." Vivian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of panic replacing her arrogance. She had assumed control, underestimated my mother's foresight, and misjudged my resolve. "You think this ends here?" she snapped, but her voice faltered. "We'll see about that." At that moment, the door opened. Mr. Caldwell and a team of investigators entered. Cameras, documents, and legal papers were spread out like a trap meticulously set. Vivian's smirk faded. Mark appeared behind her, stunned, realizing the betrayal was now exposed. "It's over," Caldwell said firmly. "Every move you made has been documented. Justice will follow." Vivian tried to protest, to deflect blame, but every lie, every manipulation, crumbled under the weight of the evidence. Mark's betrayal was undeniable. The room was silent, except for the sound of Vivian's controlled breathing and my own heart racing. I sank into a chair, the envelope clutched to my chest. Relief washed over me, but it was tempered with the ache of knowing my family's fractures ran deeper than I could have imagined. My mother had protected the inheritance, but the cost had been a revelation I wasn't ready for: betrayal from blood, greed, and the shocking lengths people go to for power. CTA. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you for money? Comment below. Would you fight back or walk away? And if you haven't yet, like, subscribe, and share this story to see how the final act unfolds, where justice, revenge, and shocking closure collide. After everything I had uncovered, betrayal, lies, and shocking conspiracies, I wondered, could justice truly heal a broken family? Could I ever trust again? This was the moment that would change everything. The courtroom was tense. Every step I took felt heavy, yet purposeful. Months had passed since the confrontation at the safe deposit box, and the evidence I had gathered, my mother's letters, bank records, and Vivian's own admissions, had been meticulously compiled by Mr. Caldwell and the authorities. Vivian and Mark sat across from me, their confidence from the beginning of this saga replaced by unease and fear. They had underestimated my mother's foresight and my determination. The weight of truth was finally pressing down on them, and it was impossible to escape. "Your Honor," Mr. Caldwell began, "the defendants conspired to defraud the rightful heir, using deception, threats, and illegal methods. All evidence has been verified, and justice must be served." The judge's gaze swept over Vivian and Mark. You could almost hear the room holding its breath. Vivian's eyes darted to me, hoping for some sign of leniency, but there was none. Only the quiet resolve I had felt since the day I first opened my mother's envelope. "Do you, Vivian Lawson and Mark Lawson, have anything to say for yourselves?" the judge asked. Vivian's lips trembled. For the first time, her voice cracked. I only wanted what was mine. I didn't think anyone would find out." Mark remained silent, guilt etched into every line of his face. "The court finds both defendants guilty of conspiracy, fraud, and attempted theft," the judge declared. "Vivian Lawson will serve life imprisonment for her deliberate acts of betrayal and manipulation. Mark Lawson will face a minimum of 20 years for his involvement. Justice will be enforced, and the rightful heir will receive the inheritance as intended." Relief surged through me, yet it was bittersweet. I had fought for my mother's legacy, for the security she had intended, but the emotional wounds ran deep. Family I had trusted had crumbled, and the betrayal cut farther than any loss of money ever could. After the verdict, I walked out of the courtroom. The air felt lighter, almost cleansing, but memories of the confrontation, the lies, and the threats lingered. Mr. Caldwell followed, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Your mother's planning saved everything. You did what she wanted, and more importantly, you protected yourself." I nodded, tears welling in my eyes. "It's hard to feel victory when the betrayal comes from your own family," I whispered. He smiled gently. "Sometimes, surviving the storm is the real triumph." Justice is just the confirmation. At home that evening, I opened the safe deposit box one last time. The inheritance, now fully secure, was a tangible reminder of my mother's foresight and her love. But the papers also held something far more valuable: letters addressed to me, words of wisdom, and encouragement to never let greed or betrayal define me. Family isn't always blood. One letter read, "Trust those who deserve it, fight for what's right, and never let darkness take your light." Reading those words, I felt a weight lift off my chest. The legacy was not just money. It was resilience, strength, and a reminder that even in the face of betrayal, hope could prevail. Weeks later, I started rebuilding my life. Relationships were cautious, trust was measured, but I felt empowered. I had navigated deception, confronted greed, and upheld the values my mother had instilled in me. And though Vivian and Mark were gone from my life physically, the lessons remained. I learned that strength is forged in the crucible of betrayal, that justice can be both bitter and sweet, and that surviving the storm is its own reward. Final CTA. What would you do if faced with betrayal by those closest to you? Comment below. Would you fight, forgive, or walk away? And if you haven't yet, subscribe, and share this story to experience more shocking, emotional tales that prove one decision can change everything. Because in the end, the truth will always find a way.